and Hulk.
Back around the time of Infinity War and Endgame, I made several videos on how I thought the Russo brothers and Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely handled the characters really well, from Captain America to Iron Man to Thor. Now obviously, other directors and creatives like Kevin Feige or Taika Waititi or James Gunn had a hand in all that, but I was really impressed with how that core team of four handled those characters in the sort of end of the Infinity Saga. However, there is one key character that I do not think they handled very well, and I think they kind of messed him up a little bit. Although having said that, when I really think about it, I don't think this character's truly delivered in about 10 years. I think the last time this character was really, truly awesome was in 2012's The Avengers.
Stop lying to me!
And that character is, of course, Mr. Bruce Banner, Dr. Hulk. Dr. Bruce Banner, Mr. Hulk.
He got my name wrong.
Get out there, you moron!
The Hulk. The Incredible Hulk.
That's it? That's the best you got?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
I think Marvel's Hulk has been muddled probably from the start, and there's been some moments of brilliance, but overall it's been a very muddled, messy arc for the character, and I think more often than not he is sidelined in favour of other people. And now we've gotten to the stage where he is in the later phases of the MCU and he's taking on more of a mentorship role in the She-Hulk show. It feels like too much too soon.
Cause we didn't ask for this, but you still gotta deal with it.
Characters like Steve Rogers and Tony Stark passing on the mantle to characters like the Falcon or Ironheart, that kind of makes sense, and it feels like they've taken those characters as far as they could possibly go. Like seeing Sam Wilson go from Captain America's sidekick in The Winter Soldier to his own fully fledged Avenger in the later films to now being Captain America himself is an awesome earned arc.
Dude, Captain America needs my help. There's no better reason to get back in.
I'm sorry, wait, who are you?
Captain America.
Stay down!
No.
But She-Hulk taking up the mantle from the Hulk, or at least becoming the new focus, even if this Hulk remains, feels too soon, because he's not had a solo film since 2008, and I know obviously there's a lot of problems and issues with that with the rights in Universal, which means that Marvel can't necessarily make a Hulk solo sequel.
A standalone Hulk movie will never happen. Because Universal has the rights to the standalone Hulk movie, and for some reason, they don't know how to play well with Marvel. And they don't want to make money.
And with you as the new Hulk, it would be terrible. So that's really probably
that's
the reason.
probably
Because we know
So that's not necessarily their fault, but at the same time, whenever he's in the team-up films, he feels like an afterthought. And it's weird because the Hulk, you know, if you look at the start of the MCU, he's one of the most well-known characters, aside from maybe Iron Man, to step into that core Avengers team. And then over the years, as those characters have risen in popularity, he's just completely stagnated. Before I delve further into Marvel's Muddled Hulk, I want to quickly talk about today's sponsor, Marvel Collect by Topps. Topps do a lot of different trading card games, but obviously I'm far more interested in the Marvel iteration because I'm a huge dork, so I figured you might get a kick out of this too. Marvel Collect gets you to complete missions to earn new character cards, which you can then trade. You can also unlock unique content such as avatars and more. You can trade with other Marvel collectors across the world, but don't worry if their collection is bigger than yours. It's about how you use it, or so I'm told. You can make custom collections themed around any Marvel teams, heroes or villains. Marvel Collect allows you to trade cards from not only the 616 comic book world, but also the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including the most recent Disney Plus shows. The prize wheel allows you to get more goodies like coins and cards. If you love Marvel and you like trading, this is the app for you. Go to my link in the description to download Marvel Collects by Topps. And if you want to follow me, my username is of course FullFatVideos. 2008's The Incredible Hulk, I think, is a massively underrated MCU film. I think the arc for Edward Norton's Bruce Banner is a bit messy.
What are you saying? You think you can control?
No, not control it, but I don't know, maybe aim it.
He kind of goes through the motions on whether he wants to control the Hulk or get rid of it, and then by the final few frames of his story at the end, where we see him sort of meditate and transform into the Hulk, it doesn't really quite come together, and it doesn't particularly feel like an arc that was well served in the movie. And I think that's what brings the whole package down as being a top tier MCU movie. However, the rest of it I think is really fun. I really like the action in the movie. I think Leterrier did a tremendous job, and I really like the villains. I think William Hurt as Thunderbolt Ross and Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky, aka the Abomination, are fantastic.
They threw a forklift truck like it was a softball.
It's the most powerful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, if I could take what I know now, put it in the body I had 10 years ago,
That would be someone I wouldn't want to fight. I want what you got out of Banner. I want that. I want more. You've seen what he becomes, right? I have. And it's beautiful.
Tim Roth is a credit to the MCU, and I love that they started up the whole Super Soldier contingent with that character. Going back and watching it now, knowing what the MCU has become, it's really interesting seeing how they seeded in the Super Soldier so early, and seeing how Emil Blonsky would take on the Hulk with his acrobatics and soldier skills. It just sort of shows that, you know, I kind of wish we'd have seen what Steve Rogers would have been capable of taking on the Hulk. I don't think he would have won, but given what Blonsky could do, I think he'd give it a good show. And obviously he's got the added benefit of having the vibranium shield. You know, maybe he could give the Hulk some head trauma at the very least. I don't think he could knock the fella out, but I think it would be a damn bit of fun. I think it would be a good show. Anyway, the Incredible Hulk movie, I think, is a lot of fun. I think there's some great action set pieces. I think it still has probably pound for pound one of, if not the best, one-on-one MCU fights. I'd say it's up there. The Hulk versus the Abomination end of the movie is up there with Cap versus the Winter Soldier in The Winter Soldier, and Iron Man versus Thanos in Infinity War. Really well delivered fights, and it's not easy to do a fight that has real weight behind the punches with two massive CGI characters. And even though the CGI, you know, I don't think it's aged amazingly, you can tell these characters are very much fake. I don't think that really matters because the visceral nature of that fight really works. I also think having Betty Ross and Thunderbolt Ross in the action as part of the danger, giving Hulk someone to save, really works. We of course get the thunderclap, probably the best it's ever been delivered on screen. And I really love the moment where he delivers Hulk Smash. I think that's perfect.
Any last words? Hulk! Smash!
The Abomination is a proper test of the Hulk's strength, and that never really happens ever again, aside from Thanos, but you don't really get a payoff for that. We'll get to that in a bit. I really love Edward Norton as the Hulk, and it's a shame that he had to step away from it due to creative differences, creative differences. I don't want to sound like a broken record after my Love and Thunder video, but going back and watching The Incredible Hulk, a movie shot on film that uses real locations, just makes it even more apparent how dogshit Phase 4 has looked for the majority of its releases. The cinematography, whilst not groundbreaking, is competent and there's a real fluidity to the action sequences. Its lead superhero is more CGI heavy than the God of Thunder, and yet I feel like this movie will age better than anything Marvel has released in the last 3 years, bar a few exceptions. I think before Eternals came out, it was the lowest grossing domestic MCU movie, so I can see why Marvel wanted to switch gears after The Incredible Hulk. It wasn't quite the success that Iron Man was, and so when we came to 2012's The Avengers, not only was he recast as Mark Ruffalo, but he was given a slight overhaul. I don't think there's too much to connect The Incredible Hulk to The Avengers Hulk. It kind of feels like a fresh character, even though canonically it is a sequel to that. I kind of like to think that the Edward Norton Hulk is a variant and the Incredible Hulk is a slightly off-kilter MCU to the one that we know, and the one that we follow, I presume, like the What If episode, we'd see the events of the Incredible Hulk, but with Mark Ruffalo as that character. Speaking of the Avengers in 2012, I think the Hulk is probably the peak he's ever been in the MCU in that movie. Bruce Banner has a fantastic relationship with Tony Stark, the Science Bros, which I think in many ways is the emotional heart of the movie. I think the arc of him controlling the Hulk is kind of repeated over from Incredible Hulk, but it's much smoother, and the crescendo to that is much more affecting. Of course, when Cap iconically asks Bruce Banner to get angry and he reveals his secret, which is of course that he's always angry. He stops the Leviathan with a fist. That's a fantastic, iconic moment in the MCU as a whole. And just watching the Hulk tear through Chitauri, we'd never seen the Hulk take on like hordes of people in quite that way. Like he's taken on tanks in the military and like the Ang Lee Hulk and the Incredible Hulk, but I think we saw a new side to Hulk action in the Avengers, and it was just wonderful to see. And from there, I think it would have been perfect if he'd have gotten a solo movie like all of the other characters to really delve into what makes that character tick, which I think they get right in The Incredible Hulk and they get right in The Avengers, in that Bruce Banner's life sucks. He's one of the few Avengers that you really would not want to be. His life is a torment, he's on the run, he's ripped away from the people he loves, he can't get too excited, which must be a bit of a shame.
Not even a little excited?
He has no praise for even the heroic acts that he carries out as the Hulk. He is constantly besmirched by Ross and the media, and he never catches a break. And that's what's so wonderful about that character.
Well, I don't every time get what I want.
Even when he teams up with the Avengers and he's a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. and he gets to save the world, he still has to go off into hiding in the next movie.
In case you needed to kill me, but you can't. I know, I tried. I got low. I didn't see an end, so I put a bullet in my mouth and the other guy spit it out.
Hulk is like it's Prometheus, right? The guy who steals fire from the gods for people, but he gets burned doing it and is cursed, right? He's trying to take like the power of nature back out to people from the gods, and he gets burned. And that's how I thought about it. I was like, if we could do something like that leans into this guy who thinks he's going for something good that's going to help humanity, and he cracks open like the backside of God and takes something out that is not meant to be taken out, and now he's cursed. That's what was amazing. Even as silly as the show was on some levels, Bill Bixby was cursed. Yeah. Like that's what, and the end of every show you were like, oh my God, he's still cursed, like alone in the world and cursed, right?
They kind of stripped the darkness out of Bruce Banner's story by the time we get to Age of Ultron, and it doesn't help the fact that aside from Hawkeye, all of the other Avengers popped up during Phase 2, and we got something meaty to work with all of them. Even Black Widow gets a really tasty role in The Winter Soldier, so I think Hawkeye and the Hulk were particularly lacking there. Of course, Hawkeye gets something to do in Age of Ultron. He gets to mentor Scarlet Witch, and he's kind of necessary for starting off her arc that would then go on into Civil War and so forth, and she's like, one of the most important MCU characters, particularly in Phase 4.
Doesn't matter what you did, or what you were.
If you go out there, you fight, and you fight to kill. But if you step out that door, you are an Avenger.
He got something really interesting to work with in Age of Ultron, and of course we got to meet Hawkeye's family, which further grounded that character, whereas Banner got stuck in a kind of messy romantic arc with Black Widow, which really did not work. And I don't think it didn't work because the characters don't have any chemistry. If you go back and watch the first Avengers film, the relationship between those two, I think, is really neat. And I think it's secondary to the Science Bros. I think that's the most important relationship that Banner has in the movie. And I think the reason why it didn't work going into Age of Ultron is because what we really want to see is two characters who want to be together but can't be. We want the will they, won't they. We want the glances, we want the, the awkwardness, we want all of the wonderful things that come out of two characters who have feelings for each other that they don't want to admit. And instead, Age of Ultron just starts off and they've already kind of had a romantic entanglement, and they're kind of just spending all their time complaining about the fact that they can't keep going forward together.
Missed our window.
Did we?
So it gets really grating, and I don't think it's particularly fun to watch. And then adding on top of that, you've got this horrendous theme with Black Widow where she's sort of questioning if she's a monster like Banner, which I understand is to sort of highlight the parallels between them, but it just breaks it down to, I'm a monster because I can't have kids. And that arc really sucks for both characters.
Makes everything easier. Even killing. You still think you're the only monster on the team?
And then, of course, the Hulk gets shot off into space. He's not a part of Civil War, as is Thor. And then he pops up in Sakaar in 2017's Thor Ragnarok. And it's a fun role. I'd say it's probably the best the Hulk is outside of Avengers and Incredible Hulk. And it's the only time I think the humour with Bruce Banner really works. Contextually, he's been the Hulk for a couple of years, and now that he's transformed back into Bruce Banner, he's still kind of got the anger and he's a bit disorientated.
Why are you being so weird?
I don't know. Maybe the fact that I was trapped for 2 years inside of a monster made me a little weird.
And pairing him up with a character like Thor just produces some hilarious results.
What do you want revenge?
I'm undecided.
Come on, Tony wears his pants super tight.
Sorry. He is very powerful and useful.
Yeah, Banner's powerful and useful too.
Is he though?
There's not too much for him to do in that movie, but what he does do is a lot of fun.
You'll see!
Then we go into Infinity War, which I think is where the Hulk really starts to crash and burn in terms of his character arc.
Let him have his fun.
Hulk gets his arse handed to him at the start of the movie by Thanos, and it's the first time we've really seen him take on a true test since 2008's Abomination. He gets utterly destroyed by Thanos, and it's all down to Thanos' focus and skill and fighting prowess, and the Hulk's rage and lack of finesse just can't match those skills. So he gets completely flattened, and it is an absolute humbling. And then after that, we establish that the Hulk is actually scared to come out again because he does not want to face Thanos. That's a really interesting place to put the Hulk. The fearless, the incredible, the oftentimes seemingly invulnerable is now so scared that he is allowing Bruce Banner to take full control.
Come on!
What do you mean, no?
That could be something that's really interesting. And then, of course, how do we deal with that? Well, there's so much going on in the movie already that we don't have time to explore that in any kind of meaningful or satisfying way. Bruce Banner just starts telling a load of jokes, and he trips around in the Hulk Buster suit, and he, like, you know, says things like, "Yeah, that's right, back at ya," to the aliens, or something like that. Oh no, what is it he says? It's so goofy. "Ah, you guys are screwed now." Not the best use of that character. I don't think he works when he's funny, aside from like a few outliers, as in Thor Ragnarok. I think that would have been a real moment to deliver on the darkness of the Hulk again, and have Bruce Banner like question, like, you know, what am I if the Hulk doesn't want to come out? Am I a hero? Can I still be useful? What can I contribute? You know, like, can I still contribute my mind in a meaningful way?
Hulk, we got a lot to figure out, pal.
There is a deleted scene right at the end of Infinity War where Bruce Banner and the Hulk do actually work out their differences.
Some issues here, but if you're gonna appear at any moment, now would be a hell of a good time.
No! Banner only want Hulk for fighting!
So what?
Banner hate Hulk!
I don't hate you. You're more an Avenger than I am. I love you.
No, you don't.
And the Hulk was set to explode out of the Hulkbuster, which would have been an incredible image, and he would have killed... Is it Cull Obsidian? Who's the big fella in the Black Order? Is it Cull Obsidian? I can't remember their goofy Transformers names anymore. It's been some years. But anyway, the big guy, the Hulk was meant to finish him off. Instead, in the finished cut, Bruce Banner says, "Screw you," and does it all by himself, which I think works for the movie, and it leaves, you know, their relationship open-ended. They've still got more things to work out going into Endgame. I don't think Infinity War necessarily like puts stakes in the ground in terms of where that relationship's going to go. I think the real problem is that 5-year jump between Infinity War and Endgame, because then when we meet the Hulk again, he is of course Professor Hulk.
Hulk, we got a lot to figure out, pal.
One pair of pants later.
I know, it's crazy. I'm wearing shirts now.
Yeah. What? How? Why?
Now, I see why they did this, because obviously they're trying to show with each of the Avengers that were left over after the snap how much they've changed in those 5 years, and I think it's a nice shift for all the other characters to be so miserable, and for Banner to be actually at peace with himself and at one with the Hulk. However, that would have been so much more earned if his whole time during the MCU had been what we'd seen in The Incredible Hulk and the Avengers, which is a broken man. Instead, he's cracking wise all the time and having a lot of fun, even when the universe is about to end in Infinity War. And so when he's sat in the cafeteria talking to Black Widow and Ant-Man, and he's just casually saying like, "Oh yeah, you know, what if I thought of the Hulk as the cure? Hey presto, I'm Professor Hulk now, we're all good, we're like one." It feels like it's come out of nowhere. It's like if in between Justice League films, Batman suddenly said, "Oh, I've worked out all the trauma with my parents. I'm still Batman, but you know, I've got a new lease on life now, and I'm pretty happy." And he's just smiling in the Bat costume for the rest of the movie, and you're kind of like, the fuck is going on here? This is kind of weird. I feel like we're missing a crucial part of Bruce's story here. The more time the Hulk spends in his form as opposed to Banner, the more he learns. By the time of Ragnarok, he's forming conversations and can function as a much calmer being than in his earlier days. Banner and Hulk are unequivocally intertwined, but by merging the two, you kind of sacrifice all the development that Jade Giant has gone through in service of the good Doctor. Professor Hulk is just superpowered Bruce Banner, let's be honest. Any trace of the original Hulk character is gone by Endgame. In essence, he dies at Thanos' hand because that is the last time we ever properly see him. Maybe if Professor Hulk still had to deal with his anger issues and outbursts in a similar vein to the first Avengers movie, it wouldn't have felt like such a slap in the face. The Hulk and Bruce Banner's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde dichotomy and their inability to reconcile as two halves is the most interesting and important part of the character, and I think it is so bizarre to leave the crescendo to that off screen just because we've got too much to do.
I think it's gratuitous, but whatever.
Something that also really irks me about Professor Hulk in Endgame is how his key relationships to other Avengers are completely stripped away. He has barely 1 or 2 exchanges with Tony Stark throughout the whole movie, and it's all utterly meaningless.
Man, stroke those keys, Jolly Green.
What happened to the Science Bros dynamic? Did no one care anymore? The Nat-Bruce romance wasn't exactly popular, so I understand why it was dropped, but beyond a vague allusion to it in the cafe scene, the pair never bring any closure to their romance that was explored in 2 previous movies. When Nat dies, Bruce is about as upset as everyone else, and there is no mention of the fact that she was prepared to drop everything and run away with him over their superhero lives. Even if the fanbase didn't want them to get together, I think you should at least address it better than it is in the final cut. And then the other thing I think they screw up in Endgame is Professor Hulk. You know, I like that he gets to undo Thanos' work with the second snap, and I think that works very well in terms of the idea that, you know, the Hulk doesn't need to use his fists to beat Thanos. He can do other things using his mind, using his kindness to win the day. However, at the same time, I do think you could have gone through an arc in which the Hulk was humbled and he realises that his rage is not always the answer. He can't just smash his way through the bad guy. And wouldn't it have been awesome to see him learn the same kind of martial arts that Bruce Banner was learning in his spare time? Or even the fact that they would merge together would mean, like, for example, in 2008's Incredible Hulk, Edward Norton's Hulk is learning jiu-jitsu and breathing techniques from none other than Rickson Gracie, who is one of the greatest jiu-jitsu artists in the world. That was already set up, and I think that would have been such a nice payoff and would have further tied those 2 movies together if the Hulk had walked up to Thanos in the final battle and started pulling out all kinds of honed martial arts skills on him, and it could have been a complete switcheroo to the beginning fight in Infinity War. I don't hate Captain Marvel, but I feel like she doesn't really have a relationship to Thanos, and she hasn't been beaten in the same way that Bruce was in the first part of this 2-part saga. So for her to be one of the final characters at the very end trying to rip the glove from him feels like kind of strange, and I think out of everyone it should have been Tony, Thor, Hulk and Cap who should have been those last crucial members to take on Thanos. And then from there, of course, you've kind of left the Hulk in a weird position. Sure, you could do World War Hulk as a movie, or you could just do a solo Hulk sequel. You could have him finally fight the leader. You could have the Abomination pop up again. You could have him take on new villains. You could pair him up with a different hero. But once he's become Professor Hulk, that feels like his endgame. Where else can you take the character without regressing him? Of course, he showed up in the post-credit scene of Shang-Chi as Bruce Banner, and we've seen him in the She-Hulk promotional material as Professor Hulk. We don't know if maybe that takes place before Shang-Chi or afterwards, but it would seem to imply that sometimes he's going to be able to turn back into Mark Ruffalo at will, or maybe they just didn't want to spend the CGI money on Professor Hulk in a post-credit scene in Shang-Chi, and they just thought, oh, we'll get Mark Ruffalo in. You know, we're already overworking and underpaying all those VFX artists and squeezing our deadlines and crushing them, so, you know, we'll let them off this time. We'll be nice. Yeah, good one, Marvel. Even if the Hulk is fun in She-Hulk, it's not his story anymore. We've already shifted to She-Hulk, which is fine. I like She-Hulk in the comics, but it's not really so much a mantle that is passed with those 2 characters, and it's more like they coexist concurrently in the Marvel Universe. So either way, whether the Hulk continues on as Professor Hulk and we never get anything dark or interesting with him ever again and She-Hulk takes centre stage, or the Hulk story definitively ends in She-Hulk and the mantle is completely passed on, either way, I think that kind of sucks. And his whole tenure in the MCU has been one massive missed opportunity. I want to see the Hulk take on his villains. I want to see him battle his inner demons. I want to see him go into his own psyche and take on Devil Hulk. I want to see him take a stint as Joe Fixit. I want to see all these different disparate sides of himself bubble to the surface. I want to see him overcome his rage and his anger issues. I want to delve into all of that interesting stuff. But I worry that with the Hulk, in the MCU anyway, it's kind of too little too late. Who knows, maybe a What If could kind of explore all of these things. but it doesn't seem like we're going to get any kind of substantial solo project with Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner. I think he's probably going to keep remaining a side character and a support, and maybe he'll be in Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars, but I can't see him taking centre stage in any way, and that is a real shame.
Was the air horn really necessary?
For comedy, absolutely.
What would you like to see from the Hulk? Do you agree with me? Do you feel like he's been underserved? Would you have liked to have seen him take on Thanos in a rematch with some new martial arts skills? Would you like to see him battle out his rage? Would you like to see other incarnations of the Hulk? Let me know in the comments below. A big thank you to my full fat tier patron, Dr. Chike. If you'd like to donate money to my Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/fullfatvideos. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, you can find me at full_fat_videos. And if you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at, you guessed it, at fullfatvideos.